Chapter 10, page 154. I waited until Maxie disappeared into her building. She never looked back. I didn't really expect her to. The moment the door closed behind her, the misty rain grew more intense. Thick droplets fell, soaking my skin, and I wondered if Maxie had the same magic control over the weather, the ability to protect herself but dump on me. Apparently, I had the same ability with my words. I headed for home. I was already wet and already late, so I didn't bother to hurry. I hated myself so much for what I had said that I could hardly see straight. The rain wasn't helping my mood in any way. I only felt muckier. Nothing was washed clean. A car pulled up alongside me, slowing to match my pace. Father. I didn't have to turn my head to know it was him. I recognized the engine's hum and caught a glimpse of the tan hood out of the corner of my eye. He tapped the horn, but I ignored it, and I walked for a while longer with him rolling next to me. He finally leaned over and lowered the passenger window. Getting a little wet there, aren't you? He spoke lightly, as if this were a regular day where everything was normal. I kept walking, hoping he wouldn't be able to tell that my face was wet with more than just rain. Sam, please get in the car, please. What's the point? I spat. You seem to have gone a little out of your way. I rubbed a layer of water off my mouth. So you came in to check on me because I didn't come straight home? Father sighed. He stretched his arm along the back of the bench seat. I came to offer you a ride because it's raining. I said I'm fine. Suit yourself, and he sped up past me. At the corner, he stopped and waited. He watched me go by, and I shook my head, and he drove off again. He was sitting in the car when I walked in the driveway. He got out and entered the house together. Mama emerged from the hallway as we came in. Sam, you're soaked, she exclaimed. Roland, you were supposed to pick him up. Father hung up his coat and dried his hands on his pant leg. Your son has inherited your stubborn streak. Mama said, raising an eyebrow, 'cause you're such a pushover yourself. They laughed softly together. I didn't see what was the least bit funny. I ripped off my jacket and went to my bedroom. I put on fresh clothes, leaving the damp ones in the pile on the floor, and I started back to the living room, but changed my mind. When Father wanted me, he could come and get me. I sat on my bed and leaned against the pillow. Maxie would never forgive me for saying what I had. She wouldn't want me around anymore. Wouldn't push me to do Panther stuff with her. Maybe now I could return to Father's world, bring all of myself back to the place I'd started from. Maybe I could learn to ignore the gnawing in the pit of my stomach telling me it wasn't enough. Rain poured against the roof and windows, steady and low, drum beats announcing the presence of the sky. The walls groaned back at the rustling wind, but the storm outside couldn't compare to the one in my head. I lay on my bed and stared upward, wishing I could make my mind as blank as the ceiling. How could I want so many things that didn't match? In the morning, even though it was Saturday, I tried to hurry out of the house. Despite wishing that I could just let her go, I wanted to make it up with Maxie. I hoped I could catch her on her way to the breakfast. Father stopped me in the hall. I have a couple of ideas for the demonstration that I would like to discuss with you over breakfast. He gave me a pointed look. Had he known where I was going? I spent the whole day working with him. Fred and Leon stopped by for a while, permits in hand, to discuss legal issues with Father. He knew the answers to every question they asked, and he only had to look up one thing in one of the thick books on his desk. I was pretty impressed. In the afternoon, we worked at the dining table, typing letters and stuffing them into envelopes. I matched the letters Father had typed to each one of the envelopes he was addressing. He stopped working and studied me like he was going to say something, then went back to the envelopes as soon as he saw me glance up. What is it? I said. The silence between us was taking a toll on me, too. He hesitated. What would you be doing if you weren't helping me? It wasn't the question I was expecting. Probably walking somewhere with Maxie, I lied. I was sure she was still mad at me, and I couldn't blame her. Father nodded. She seems like a nice girl, Sam. I stopped folding, recalling the night I brought her home. Father's eyes clouded. After a moment, he cleared his throat. You can bring her over to help if you like. I just don't want you hanging out in the streets so much. I drew my finger along the creases of the letter. I'll tell her, I said, if she ever spoke to me again. Several nights later, I lay staring alternately at the block tower and the bedroom ceiling, trying to think of how to say I'm sorry to Maxie. She hadn't spoke to me since our fight, and she'd been avoiding me at school. The hurt look in her eyes haunted me, and I didn't know how to take back what I had said. Tap, tap, tap. A sound at the window. I moved the curtain aside and looked out. Stick stood there, leaning against the side of the house. "What are you doing?" I said. "Come in." I raised the window. "I can't." I reached past the curtain and grabbed his shoulder, but he pulled away. There were red smudges on my fingertips. "Stick, you're bleeding." "Shh. Get in here," I said, lowering my voice. "I don't think I can," he said. My heart began to race. What happened? Where are you hurt? Stick? I leaned toward him so far I nearly fell out of the house, and Stick braced his hands against my shoulder to stop me and grimaced as he moved. "Be quiet and stop panicking. I'm fine." "You are not." Stick must have climbed in and out of our window 100 times. He could have done it in his sleep. "It's just my ribs are sore." "You got something I can step on?" I dragged my desk chair out the window. "Stand back." I lowered it out the window, trying not to make too much racket. Stick stepped in on the chair and then turned and sat on the windowsill. He sat with his back to me for a moment. "I've got you," I said. Stick leaned into my arms and I pulled him inside. He was too heavy for me to hold, and I half fell onto the carpet with him on top of me, and I moved him to the side and sat up. Stick's eyes were pinched shut, and he was hugging his chest. He lay still on the floor, and seeing him in the light, I gasped. Oh my God. His eye and cheek were swollen, and his lips split open. "Would you hush?" he snapped, and I glanced toward the wall between the bedrooms. "Sorry." I got up and pulled the chair back inside and then closed the window. Stick touched his face and winced. "Hold on." I stepped into the hallway, closing the door behind me. I listened for a moment, and Father was in the living room, and Mama was puttering around in her bedroom. I rushed to the bathroom and damped a cloth from Mama's clean rags bin. I grabbed a dry one, too, and a couple of bandages, and I carried them back to Stick. I closed and locked the bedroom door. Stick was leaning against the side of a bed, and I knelt beside him and used the wet cloth to wipe the blood off of his face and neck. "What happened?" He opened his uninjured eye and looked at me. "Sam?" The doorknob creaked. "Why is this door locked?" Mama said. Stick stared at me with a panicked expression. He clutched his side and leaned toward the window. "Quick," I whispered. I helped him to his feet and shoved him towards the closet. He dodged the block tower and slid inside. "Sam?" "Coming, Mama." I shut the closet door and I tugged my shirt over my head. "I'm changing." I tossed the shirt under the desk and unbuttoned the top of my pants, and I held on to them as I pulled the door open. "I'm changing," I said again, and I rebuttoned my pants while Mama watched. "Sam, what's on your pants?" She touched my leg above the knee. "Is that blood?" "Oh, yeah. Paper cut." I held up a finger. She steadied my hand, so I lowered it. "You can't even see it anymore." Mama surveyed the quarter-sized stain, bigger than a paper cut should cause. "It must have been deep. You need a bandage?" "No, it stopped bleeding." She handed me an armful of clean clothes. "You'll need these tomorrow. Now go get these pants off, and I'll put them in to soak." "Okay, Mama." And I half closed the door and stood behind it. I took off my pants and slid into my pajamas. Mama stepped in and picked up my dirty pants from the floor. "It's getting late, Sam. Put your light out and go to sleep." She draped the pants over her arms and glanced around the room. Her eyes lingered on Stick's neatly made bed. After a long moment, she kissed my forehead and went back into the hall. "Sleep well." "Good night," I said, pushing the door shut. I listened until her footsteps moved down the hall, and then I turned to the closet. Stick was huddled in the corner, his head resting on his knees, and I touched his shoulder. "It's okay," I said. Stick lifted his head. His eyes were cloudy and half closed, his cheeks damp. "I have to go." "You need to sleep here," I said. "I can lock the door again." "No," he said. "I have to go." But he dropped his head back to his knees. "Come on," I said, helping him up. "Don't be ridiculous." He leaned against me as we walked slowly to his bed, and I pulled back the covers and he sat down. He looked up at me and nodded. "Stay." Stick started to bend forward but sat up, clutching his chest. He hissed through his teeth a couple of breaths. "Darn." "What is it?" I said, leaning over. "Let me see." I tried to pull his shirt up. No, he batted my hands away. I'm fine. Just get my shoes. I knelt in front of him and took off his shoes. You want pajamas? He shook his head. She noticed that. He tucked his legs under the covers and lay down. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, wincing a little as his ribs expanded. Where have you been staying? I knew he had heard me because his forehead wrinkled, but he didn't answer, and I didn't want to press the issue. Your hair is long, I said, patting his afro. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Yeah. I'm glad you came back. I flicked the light off and locked the door. By the time I got into bed, Stick's breathing had smoothed out. I lay down, listening to the familiar sound. It was like a coming home for me, too. I was still asleep when Mama knocked on the door in the morning. I blinked into my pillowcase. I'm awake, I called, my voice muffled by the sheets. The doorknob turned and the hinges creaked, and I sprang up. Don't come in, Mama. I was sure I'd locked the door. Mama frowned at me from the doorway. Here are your towels, she said, laying them across the desk. They're clean. I looked towards Stick, but his bed was empty and the blankets tucked in smooth. He must have unlocked the door, too. Thanks. You're running late, she said as she closed the door. Get a move on. I leapt out of bed and opened the closet door. No sign of him. Then I saw the note lying on top of my shoes. 6 words in Stick's quick block scrawl. Where is it? I need it. I crumpled the page and tossed it into the trash. Kneeling beside the bed, I moved my books aside and reached for the box. I stared at the gun for a moment, and then I closed the lid and pushed the box back under the bed, and I got ready in a hurry and headed out the door.